You ready?
There is a connection between the paranormal, UFOs, and the myths of ancient history. The clues are scattered across the landscape from a forbidden past, maybe even in your own backyard. There is a connection between the true nature of our reality, consciousness, and the unexplained. I'm Carl the Crusher. Let's explore the unknown. Hi, everyone. My name is Carl Andresen. Online, I go by the name, it's over here, Carl the Crusher. That's my YouTube channel name and what you'll pretty much find me everywhere as, except for my Linktree, and my Twitter is Carl Vibe. I picked those other personas and names because it's really difficult to spell Andresen and for people to remember. And so I use the Carl Crusher thing. It's been kind of a childhood comic book character that I used to draw. But I'm really excited for the opportunity to share with everybody my stories and experience and some of the research that I've been involved in and the work that I do with my current colleagues, and especially some of the locations that I've been, and how it all ties together into the current hot topic of ufology and the phenomenon, how it all ties together. Now, I've been a filmmaker and making YouTube videos independently since 2009. I originally did it with my family and with my kids. And then a few years ago, 3, 4 years ago, I lost my father to dementia, and then went through the process of a divorce right in the middle of all of that, and sort of went through an entire shift in my life direction and path. And one of the things that unfolded for me is in trying to go through all of those experiences and pick myself up and re-figure out my life, it brought up a lot of things from my childhood, these paranormal encounters that I used to have growing up, and these strange experiences. And honestly, when I started going through these trials and things in my life a few years ago, it really reawakened a lot of that from my childhood. I started having these interesting sleep paralysis episodes again, where I would have these vibrational episodes where I would feel like I was stuck in this vibration or paralyzed, and then I would go into an out of body experience or encounter entities. As a child, I would have similar experiences where I would be like paralyzed in my bed at night, and then there would be entities or a being in my room, in my bedroom, and then I would have like a vision or out of body experience that was very indicative or similar to like an abduction scenario, like I'm flying through space or through the clouds in some kind of like a neon craft with other beings there. I've had also shared experiences like an abduction experience or attempt with a friend when I was in my youth as a kid with one of the neighbor kids during a sleepover. That was a pretty strange experience. And a lot of that kind of came back up in my life. And I started experiencing it again when my father passed away. I also, at the same time, went through a sort of faith crisis where I left the Mormon church. I was a member of that faith my whole life. And just before the divorce and right before my dad passed away, I left that religion as well. So I had this huge void in my life. And then all these experiences from my childhood started reoccurring and coming back into my life again, and causing me to face a lot of questions and a lot of things in my life. And so I found myself on this path and a journey to try and get answers. And one day, as I was exploring and learning meditation and listening to audiobooks about philosophy and Buddhism, and learning different types of meditation, I was watching on TV one night, and an episode of the TV show Ancient Aliens came on. And whatever you think of that, or not, if you think it's real or not, I had this kind of an awakening moment where I realized that all of the petroglyphs, these ancient indigenous carvings that they were showing on the cliff faces and these canyon walls in reference to ancient aliens or interactions with the star people with Native Americans, that all of these locations that they were referencing were here where I live. So I live in southern Utah, right in the desert between the Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, Area 51, and Skinwalker Ranch to the north. If you go like 3 hours or 4 hours any which direction, that's what you're going to run into where I live here. And there are petroglyphs and dinosaur footprints embedded in the sandstone all around me, and Spanish treasure markers all over in the landscape around me in this entire environment. And when I saw that on television on the Ancient Aliens show, it sort of piqued my curiosity, and something resonated with me that I wanted to go see these places for myself. And when I went online and started looking for places around, at first I was really disappointed because they would just depict like an image of a goat or sheep in like a regular villager or something. But I decided to go look anyways. So I started going out to these locations on my own by myself and hiking to these ancient indigenous locations where there's petroglyphs and pictographs. And I realized immediately that once you get there, there is a lot more than just depictions of little villagers and goats. If you continue to look or go past just the initial points of interest that they mark on the maps and online, you realize that there's these incredible panels of petroglyphs that depict these phenomenal stories that are mind-blowing and often confusing, and sometimes they look like full-blown maps and stories of contact between deities or supernatural entities coming in and out of what looks like spiral portals and all kinds of interesting stuff. But the last thing that you want to do is speculate so much about that you're culturally appropriating these indigenous works of art and the history when you're not an indigenous person and don't have the authority or the education to go to the sites and to do that. But undeniably, when I started going to these locations, I started finding these incredible petroglyphs that piqued my curiosity to the point that I was going and sitting there and meditating in these locations. And what happened to me is something I did not expect at all. These experiences from my childhood that were only happening normally when I would sleep at night in these sleep paralysis episodes began to unfold in the waking hours when I'm doing a conscious meditation in these historical spots, when I'm sitting there looking at these panels of petroglyphs and pondering what their life must have been like in those times when the artists carved them on the wall. What did they see? What were they trying to say? What was their belief system? What were the rituals that they were doing? And at a very deep level, I began meditating on that and reflecting on that and resonating with that all the way into my core. And as I did that and stayed, even at night, I would have these phenomenal experiences where I would see orbs of light that would appear among the rocks and in the canyons. I also had experiences of missing time, where I would suddenly wake up and have this vague memory of being somewhere else or like a dream. And then I would be very dizzy trying to get back to my truck to get home. I would also have these almost shamanic initiation visions where I would be suddenly enveloped in like a dreamscape where there's a bonfire and drumming and figures around me. And then there's like this download of information or imbuing of knowledge bestowed where I just learn things or I understand things or have like a vision about myself or those people or the time or what I'm supposed to do or how to protect the place or all sorts of interesting things. And ultimately, I was weighing all of these experiences against my former religious beliefs with all the philosophies I was learning and all of that and looking for answers. And ultimately I was like, I wound up in these places because I'm watching these ancient alien shows and now I'm experiencing it firsthand myself. And I can't be the only one. There has to be uh, people associated with the carvings themselves, Native American individuals that I could seek out to help me answer these questions of the things that I'm experiencing. And also, is it something to do with these locations? Is it something to do with me and human consciousness? Is there a phenomena occurring that has to do with quantum entanglement? Possibly when I go into these locations and I sit and meditate there, it is opening up human consciousness and my awareness into these other spectrums and parallel dimensions or timelines of reality, almost like a form of amplified remote viewing or astral projection, something that I was already exploring in my meditations at home. And ultimately, all of these types of studies led me to realize and look at the infamous Skinwalker Ranch up near Vernal, Utah. And there was suddenly a location that I realized was a place that I grew up near, being born and raised in southeast Idaho. I grew up going camping and hearing stories about Bigfoot, UFOs, and skinwalkers and cattle mutilations. And the skinwalker folklore and stories were all a part of my youth growing up. And I was just as afraid of them when I would go camping as a child as any other phenomena when I would go out. But to realize that there was actually a place that was researched for several decades, officially by government funded research teams by Bob Bigelow. And I started looking into that and realized that the individuals who were doing research under Bob Bigelow at Skinwalker Ranch were all members originally of like aspects and elements almost of MK Ultra or the Montauk Project. They were the original founders of the Stargate program, the military's official remote viewing and psychic spy program. So these similar types of experiences and things that are happening to me are all unfolding and suddenly present at Skinwalker Ranch, where there's reports and books coming out officially from papers and accounts going all the way up to the level of the Pentagon of a place where people are witnessing orbs of light, portals opening, and entities coming in and out. Hundreds of sightings of UFOs back into the 1960s up in that area, and current and official government research into all of that with teams of researchers that are involved in the psychic abilities and consciousness, remote viewing and such, and all of those different types of phenomena and how they could be interrelated. And all of these different interesting people and researchers and scientists were up there at Skinwalker Ranch. And so that took me on a journey to go up there during a convention that happened to open up there. And I went up and I met my friend Chris Bartell for the first time, and also was able to meet several of the other members of the Skinwalker Ranch research team. And I was surprised to find out that these guys were all legitimate researchers. Chris Bartell was a security officer at Skinwalker Ranch during the Bigelow era for 6 years there. And I got to talk to him and Caleb Bench and Thomas Winterton and Dragon Bryant and all of those guys and meet them. And they were super friendly, and realized that they all just live in the local community, just like my cousins that live up there. And they have just as many questions as I did about all of these types of experiences and phenomena. So I began going with some of the team members from Skinwalker Ranch, and we explored the Petroglyph canyons, and they were respectful enough to my theories and experiences that we went up with other colleagues to these other incredible locations outside and around and beyond Skinwalker Ranch. So we began going up to McConkey Ranch, up to the north there, where there's all these incredible petroglyphs of these figures that almost look like they're in Aztec warrior garb, and they have these giant horns and heads, and they're carrying knives and spears and severed heads, and there's all sorts of strange petroglyphs and pictographs all over these canyons up there, as well as fossilized dinosaurs. There's even depictions and carvings of the same types of entities and deity figures that I find down in southern Utah, these beings that have horns and triangular or tunic-shaped bodies with these sacred geometry symbols and portal symbols next to them, with beings coming in and out, and this incredible geometry and symmetry that has to do with the North Star and the Big Dipper in revolution around the North Star, and these tremendous stories that have to do with the star people and the ghosts or spirits and the souls of the dead from the past and even from the future coming through these portals, and the consciousness contact with these other parallel dimensions of reality. And all of this resonated with my own personal journey and experiences. And suddenly I realized that's what Skinwalker Ranch is all about and what's happening up here in this area. And it took us to go all the way up to the tops of the mountains up there and exploring the geology. Possibly there is a geological connection to the cave systems and the aquifers. If there is a certain type of limestone or quartz crystal underground that resonates with the electromagnetic field that affects human consciousness and bends and shapes reality to create these types of portals or strange wormholes where this phenomena can come through, or inversely, that our awareness and consciousness opens up in a dynamic way to be able to perceive other dimensions of reality and spectrums that you normally cannot see. So we've been exploring all of that, but it's tricky. How do you go and prove all of that by climbing down into the caves and the aquifer systems and using black lights and lasers? And so that's what we do, is we take radiation sensors, infrasound sensors, and other equipment with professional colleagues and scientists, with Eric Bard, Caleb Bench, Chris Bartell, the whole Skinwalker Ranch team. And we go up and we explore these places individually and independently. And we go to the ancient indigenous medicine wheels and we test them to see if there is EMF signals. We have even found a second location called Mount Wilson Ranch that was able to uncover. The owner of the property reached out to me and said, "Hey, I bought this property in Pioche, Nevada, directly from Bob Bigelow, and he had the same team from Skinwalker Ranch studying this location and researching it here in Nevada as well. You should come and check it out." And so I went there to Nevada, and this is all part of the same journey that I've been on this entire time that has led me to Skinwalker Ranch and from place to place. And ultimately, I've been filming all of these experiences on my YouTube channel in full documentary short films. They're usually 30 to 45 minutes a piece. And then I do entire seasons and series that upload twice a week of everything that I do and all of the behind the scenes. And that led me, because of my YouTube channel and my experiences going up and around and working with the team at Skinwalker Ranch, for the owner, Jeff McBurney, of Mount Wilson Ranch in Nevada, to come and reach out to me and ask me to come and check out his property. And when I got there, I was completely mind blown, because there were the same characters: Bob Bigelow, Hal Puthoff, Jacques Villais, Colm Kelleher, multiple other people that are suddenly up at Mount Wilson Ranch, and they have heavy equipment, bulldozers stuck out in the meadow. There's like they were digging for something. The history tells that Ronald Reagan in the Star Wars program had archaeologists and researchers at Mount Wilson Ranch exploring the ancient mine shafts and systems, and they were removing truckloads of artifacts even before Bigelow got there, and that there was encounters with the ghost of a shaman, and that there was UFO sightings, and that there was the legend that back in the 1930s, the original mining operations up there, because there's an old Wild West saloon, an original 1800s settler's cabin, and there's Native American artifacts all over the place, these big spearheads and arrowheads and all sorts of stories. There's even a validated and confirmed by an archaeologist a Spanish minecart path and other mining structures up there that could be even older than the 1800s. And so it's a fascinating place. But in the 1900s, the story goes that the miners were digging underground, doing an operation there, looking for gold or silver or whatever, and they ran into an abandoned or some kind of an alien mining operation or some kind of a craft. I've heard rumors of everything from it being a buried UFO to a pyramid to a relic alien mining operation, almost like an Anunnaki thing where they came in and enslaved people and forced them to work in the mines. And we have gone there, and I've followed up with the owner of the property and conducted multiple trips and taken groups of friends, including Chris Bartell and Brent Stone from the Museum of Tarot, and multiple other credible colleagues, James Keenan and the archaeologist from the Utah Archaeological Society, to all come to Mount Wilson Ranch and validate all of the findings that yes, NIDS was there, Bigelow was there. They were looking for some sort of extraterrestrial structure underground. And not only that, we have uncovered and found by doing meditations and putting EEG headsets on our heads and going to these medicine wheels, these Native American medicine wheels and cave systems there, and sitting inside these resonant caves and doing meditations. And we've discovered that there is these powerful infrasound Schumann resonances that have a frequency that pulses at 7, 14, and 21 hertz at this really powerful level that affects the pineal gland, the occipital lobe, the hippocampus, and all the psychoactive parts of the brain. And so the theory that we currently have going is that these locations like Mount Wilson Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch not only are plausible and theoretically due to the geology and the aquifer systems causing a resonant frequency there, but also there is some kind of a phenomenal, in my opinion, quantum entanglement phenomena that is occurring, which is why at Skinwalker Ranch they are getting these wormhole type phenomena that appear around this triangular zone. And there's always, in conjunction with the Native American Stonehenge system on top of the mesa, there's also ancient indigenous petroglyphs at Skinwalker Ranch as well. And all of the pieces of the puzzle fit there, that there's been thousands and thousands of years of Native American indigenous people conducting rituals and ceremonies, chanting and singing around these stone circles and in these resonant locations that are potent geologically and vibrationally with the echoes and everything combined, that for thousands of years they've been doing rituals there that are in alignment with the North Star and the movement of the Big Dipper. And they convey all of these supernatural experiences, the same types of things that happened to me, in their petroglyph rock art and their pictographs, and also in their oral traditions. All of my work at Skinwalker Ranch and Mount Wilson Ranch has led me to become very close friends with my friends Roger and Colleen, Roger Colte and Colleen Gorman, and they are running this program called the Re-Indigenizing Minds Project, where they are close friends that live in New Mexico. Colleen, she is a Navajo translator, and Roger, he has inherited from his great-grandfather this ancient mapping system and trade route system that ties all of these indigenous locations and petroglyph sites together, and they line up and fit with the electromagnetic field and the ley lines of the earth and this natural migration that indigenous people would have been drawn to these locations for. And so all of these experiences, when you try to combine them together, culminate in a sort of theory of the phenomena of UFOs and everything else that I have been exploring in my personal filmmaking and my personal spiritual journey and my exploration of reality and consciousness in this life, and everything that I have unfolded into. And I've been learning from my Native American friends and the Skinwalker Ranch team, and by personal experience going out to these locations firsthand, and not only trying to capture the evidence and the proof on camera with night vision and thermal imagers and even ghost hunting equipment and pseudoscience paranormal gear, but also real scientific equipment, radiation sensors and infrasound, and working with legitimate archaeologists and other researchers as collaborators who all have open minds. And we're doing meditation and all of these things combined, like as an overlapping, non-prejudice, open source approach to try and understand what this phenomena really is and what it's all about. When we go to these locations, or does it matter with the location, or does it have to do with the person and their own progress through consciousness and development? If when you go to these spots, if it somehow amplifies these experiences and brings you into this state of quantum entanglement where other people or entities or beings from the past or the future or from parallel nearby dimensions are able to quantum entangle through consciousness or even manifest right through into reality in such a way that you have a sighting of a shadow figure, a ghost, poltergeist activity, and even actual manifestations of things enveloping into reality in these particular hotspots. Just like the cattle mutilations and animal mutilations up at Skinwalker Ranch, there's been an animal mutilation at Mount Wilson Ranch, as well as artifacts and strange things that don't seem like they fit in the area that just show up on the trail, like a pair of cowboy boots or an aircraft antenna from Florida. And we get these strange readings as well, like when the TV show for the History Channel came to Mount Wilson Ranch and filmed an episode called Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, The Mystery at Mount Wilson. We captured this phenomenal drone data where they flew a GPR and a GPS drone up above where we thought possibly this buried alien artifact is underground. The GPS was convinced that it was flying over parts of Cuba and the Bermuda Triangle in a straight line, like a plotted path. So either something intercepted and put a false GPS signal, or there was a weird, strange anomaly there where the drone is half in Nevada and half over Florida or over Cuba, over the Bermuda Triangle, like a weird infolding of reality or a glitch in the Matrix where there's a wormhole connecting these two places in some strange way, which is why we find airplane parts made in Florida on the hill in Nevada. That doesn't make any sense, and strange things. But what's amazing is that in the research, as we continue to follow these types of methods, it gets more and more validating, and the colleagues that have come together to support the work has developed into the possibility of having an entire History Channel TV show or on another network, and all of that is in development, as well as uncovering real valid evidence. Jeff and I at Mount Wilson Ranch have recently discovered and found what we believe might be the original 1930s entrance where the miners went down and hit this strange alien structure underground, and then they abandoned the mine, and then all of a sudden you had the Star Wars program up there with the archaeologists, and then Bigelow up there with Jacques Vallée and the NIDS team, like they were looking for some kind of an alien structure underground. But all of this gets even more and more interesting now that you have these disclosure testimonies coming out. And you have like Ross Coulthart coming out saying that it, like in South Korea, there's this UFO. It is in South Korea, by the way, this UFO that's embedded in the side of this hill that's so big that they had to build a building or a structure around it to hide it and things. And this concept of there being relic buried craft, whether you believe Bob Lazar or not, the story for Bob Lazar is that some of these recovered reverse engineered UFOs are from archaeological digs. And so rather than sitting around and waiting for the government to come out and tell us what's going on, I'm actively going and documenting and filming with active research teams, archaeologists, scientists, and Native American experts and people from the former Skinwalker Ranch team and current Skinwalker Ranch team to go to these spots that are open and accessible historically, where they have looked for these buried artifacts and relic craft, and where the paranormal phenomena and UFO sightings are still ongoing. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been up to. And so if you want to follow all that work, you can go over to my YouTube channel, Carl Crusher, or onto my Instagram. And then down in the description box, I have all of the links to find me everywhere else, as well as my colleagues, so that you can go check out Mount Wilson Ranch, my Native American friends and their work in the Re-Indigenizing Minds program with the entire mapping system, and everything that we have going on. It's been a tremendous thing to be a part of, and still ongoing, where I'm now working with archaeologists here near my community here, and doing really cool guided experiences in the local community with groups that are coming and other places to try and help others understand what's going on, not only through filmmaking, but with firsthand experience. So I appreciate this opportunity to be able to introduce myself, tell everybody a little bit about what I do. And if you want to find out more, make sure and go check it out. And we'll see you next time.